Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Side Quests with me, TroytlePower. Thank you for having me back. I am happy to be here. If you don't know me, my name's TroytlePower. My name's Troy. I go by TroytlePower. Everywhere. I make a podcast where I do audio-only Let's Plays of video games. It's like Twitch for your ears. That's called TroytlePower Presents the Power Playthroughs podcast with TroytlePower. I'm also on the Too Young for This Trek podcast, which is about introducing someone to Trek in the most terrible way possible. And I write for geek2geekmedia.com and do other things too. You can find me pretty much anywhere as at TroytlePower. But I'm not here to talk about me today. I'm here to talk about a game I adore. A game that I don't think is one of the best Metroidvanias ever made, but it is one of the most surprisingly good Metroidvania games ever made. And that is The Mummy Demastered. So this came out back in October of 2017, about 4 months after the Tom Cruise movie, The Mummy. You remember that one? It was the whole origin point for the entire Universal Dark Universe franchise. And no, it wasn't, because it was apparently terrible and it bombed at the box office. It got terrible reviews. I've never seen the movie, but I love the game, which was developed by WayForward. WayForward, you'll know from the Shantae series or the Mighty Switch Force games. They did a game called Extreme Sports back on the Game Boy Color, which actually just recently got released on Switch too. They're the team that Yacht Club spun off of, and they did a ton of licensed games over their career. They've been around forever, and they've done games for like Mickey Mouse and Godzilla and WWF and Bear in the Big Blue House and the X-Men and the Justice League and Adventure Time. They worked on the DuckTales remaster. They've done stuff for Ruby. They did the Advance Wars remaster that came out earlier this year. And amongst all of that, they released this game called The Mummy Demastered. It's a tie-in to that Tom Cruise movie, but it's a total side story. The game got pretty good reviews when it came out. Not great, but pretty good. It's got about a 75 on Metacritic. But the reason that this game is so surprising is that that movie it's based on has a 34 on Metacritic. The movie is so bad, and the game is so good. So this is a game that it goes for a different strategy by being a tie-in than we typically see. Part of that is the Demastered. This game is this like 16-bit Metroidvania. I don't think, it's not actually 16-bit, but it looks like an old school pixel Metroidvania. It feels more like a modern remake of a classic Metroidvania than it does something brand new. And it's also a side story. You don't play as Tom Cruise's character. I think that's in large part due to the fact that it's Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise has weird issues about his likeness being used in other media. But it works out. You play as just this like nameless, faceless agent of a paranormal investigative military force. Apparently your commander is Dr. Jekyll, and it's actually Russell Crowe's likeness from the movies, which I didn't realize playing the game, but that's neat. Okay, let me back up. You start the game with an escape sequence because that's how you do a Metroidvania, right? You're somewhere in Iraq and there's a cave full of monsters and the dead bodies of your friends, and you're looking for the mummy, and along the way you wake up the mummy, and then suddenly all those dead bodies of your friends that you passed come back to life. This is really, really cool because it's a fun foreshadowing of what's going to happen later. But at this point, you can either make it out of the cave or you can die. And either way, the story actually kicks off properly when the mummy has made its way to, I think, London, and you're exploring like some caves and sewers and stuff under the city, and eventually come up in the city in a pretty familiar Metroid style game. You're going through a bunch of tunnels and passages. There's a mini map. Things get revealed on the mini map in tile spaces. There's save rooms. There's hidden upgrades. It's all stuff you've seen before, but it feels really good. You start out with just a light machine gun, which doesn't do a ton of damage, but it has infinite ammo. You can jump, you can roll through openings. That's pretty much it. You find heavier weapons right off the bat. There's quite a few weapons you can unlock throughout the game, but you can only carry, I believe, 2 with you at a time, along with that light machine gun. So there's options there, but you'll always have a pretty small kit to work from. And then you also pick up grenades, which you can use to throw at enemies, but you can also use them to destroy barriers. That's kind of your first unlock, your first key that you find in this game, is you get grenades that you can destroy barriers. And then from there, the game expands outwards. Use explosives to get into new areas, and then you start seeing doors that you can't reach. They're too high up for you to get. And you're like, aha, gonna get a double jump here. But instead, you get the ability to hang from ceilings. So you can jump and grab onto a ceiling and then climb across it like monkey bars. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but it's a fun way to open up new routes. Basically gives you the same thing a double jump would, but it feels very different from a lot of Metroidvania games. And the fact that you can shoot while you're hanging from the ceiling means that you get a fun twist on combat as well. The enemies that you face in this game can drop health or ammo or explosives, basically anything except experience. This is not a role-playing game where you're going to level up with levels. Instead, your character becomes stronger by discovering new weapons, those traversal abilities, or you can find hidden upgrades for your health or your ammo capacity throughout the world. When you add on to that the fact that you're always fighting with ranged weapons, you feel more like you're playing a Metroid game, but then the aesthetics are all Castlevania. You'll fight bats, slime monsters, creepy crawly bugs, and, of course, you got some reanimated skeletons. There's only a handful of enemy types and boss types throughout the game, especially boss fights are really limited. There's like 4 or 5, but each of those boss fights is really well designed. They're big, they're grotesque, and they are designed to keep you constantly on the move in the boss arena. You'll have to face projectiles, traps, mobs, you've got platforming challenges during the boss fights, all of this stuff that makes the boss fights feel really dynamic and exciting. For the most part, the Mummy Demastered is a really good one of these, but it doesn't necessarily blow the doors off. It's not groundbreaking. There are some surprises in the abilities and level and boss design, but the biggest new idea of this game is how it works with death. You, again, don't play as Tom Cruise. You don't play as anybody in particular in this game. You are a faceless soldier. And when you die in the Mummy Demastered, you'll see your character collapse to the ground and then stand back up again as a green-tinted zombie. And then you start playing not as that character reborn, but as a new agent sent in to pick up where your previous character left off. You'll only have your light machine gun. You don't have your explosives. You don't have stronger weapons. You don't have health upgrades. And in order to get back all your power, you have to fight your way back to wherever you died, or just outside the boss room if you died to a boss. And you have to fight the zombified version of that previous character. That agent does have all the weapons that it died with, but when it comes back as a zombie, it's kind of slow and lethargic. So with a little bit of acrobatics, it's usually pretty easy to take them out and reclaim your gear. This is a really fun system that makes each death feel impactful because you know that you're going to have to do something to make up for it. I would argue that this is more impactful even than the losing experience system that you get in Dark Souls, because there you can always just write off that experience if you died in a place that's too hard to get back to. I really love this game. The Mummy Demastered was an early pickup for me on the Switch. I think I picked it up just because I kept hearing people say how surprisingly good it was, which is kind of what I'm doing now, is just telling you it's so surprisingly good. This game in large part is what reintroduced me to Metroidvanias. It was one of the first ones I played on Switch, and I have devoured a ton of them since then. My original save file sits at about 9 hours, with 94% of the map uncovered and about 75% of the items and upgrades picked up. When I picked it up to replay it again for this recording, it took me less than 3 hours to make my way through the game. I think part of that is that I have developed a lot as a player of these kind of games and kind of know what I'm doing. But also, I made Matt wait a long time to get this recording, and I didn't want to make them wait any longer, so I kind of rushed through it. So, anyway, Mummy Demastered is a great entry point for Metroidvanias. If you've never played one before, you can start with this one and have a good time. If you're already familiar with the genre, I still think this is a fun one to jump into because it's got pretty breezy gameplay, interesting upgrades, great boss design, and it's just so weird. I think any fan of video games will enjoy playing this game just for looking at one of the weirdest and most interesting licensed games I've ever seen. Thanks for having me, Matt and Jeff. To you and to everyone listening, I've been TroytlePower. You can find me anywhere as @TroytlePower. You can find me, my podcast, as TroytlePower Presents the Power Playthroughs podcast with TroytlePower on your podcast listening platform of choice. Find me on Geek to Geek Media. And of course, happy gaming.
Hey,
Oh, hey, Jeff.
what's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.